I don't know which of them. Dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Bună dimineața, bonjour. We are starting now the Interparliamentary Conference on the Future of the European Union. This conference is organized within the parliamentary dimension of Romanian Presidency of the Council. I am Gabriela Creţu, the chairperson of the European Affairs Committee in the Senate. During this period, I've been chairing the joint committee coordinating parliamentary dimension, as you have noticed in the invitations. I share the responsibility of directly organizing this conference with my counterpart in the chamber, Angel Tâlvăr, and with my colleague and friend, Titus Corlețean. We'll be chairing actually alternatively the sessions today and tomorrow. But if something wrong, please blame me, not my colleagues. We have as official media partner the National Public Television. We are very grateful for the good job it's done by now during presidency. We have with us not only its technical team for helping in moderating the conference, joined us Mihai Constantin, a senior journalist who has been for long already the presenter of the first and the most well-known news program in Romania, Telejurnal, at 8 o'clock sharp every evening. He's a star, he doesn't need any kind of introduction. For opening officially the conference, the most legitimate representatives of both chambers of the Parliament are waiting to address the conference, not only to welcome you for sharing with us ideas about the common past, present, and future. We do believe that parliaments need strong voices. One of these voices is the Speaker of the Senate, Mr. Călin Popescu Tăriceanu. Mr. Tăriceanu is one of the longest-serving members of the Parliament. He is a former Prime Minister of Romania and the leader of the minor party, Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, in the current ruling coalition. Dear Speaker, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome you to this interparliamentary conference on the future of the European Union that was made possible by the dedication and diligence of its organizers. It is widely agreed that the process of European integration has placed our countries on an unprecedented level of human development, economic growth, stability, welfare, and above all, mutual understanding and profitable cooperation. This is an undeniable and valuable achievement that overturns the previous history of our continent. Where do we go from here? Is there a future to this end of a long history of wars and chronic competition between powers aspiring to greatness at the expense of other nations? I believe that national parliaments should take the lead and set the tone of the debates on the future of the European Union. As representatives of our national constituencies, we ought to make sure that a shared vision of the future of our Union would necessarily reflect, as widely as possible and in an inclusive manner, the interests and concerns of all member states. We must discard from the outset all attempts to create a pecking order in Europe, to reserve decisions to a select number of states, and to discriminate against other states on account that they lack the exercise of European values. As a liberal, I always look into the past for the blueprints of the future, and I dare to advise all of you to be mindful of the legacy of our founders. 70 years ago, they designed Europe not as a mere international organization or an association of states, but as a community. Our Union has been ever since, or rather should have been ever since, a community of communities, a fellowship of governments, societies and citizens based on trust, solidarity and mutual respect. Our founders envisioned a Europe free from any form of diktat politics and national or bureaucratic arrogance, a Europe without great powers leading and second-rate countries following. The upcoming European elections are for us all a splendid opportunity to make our founders' project come true, to make the European Union completely free for democracy and free at last from both elite-driven politics and populism. Distinguished colleagues, it is indeed a great opportunity for all of us today to reflect on the possibility to raise a common voice in European politics, the consonant voice of the citizens we represent, a voice which needs to be stronger, more active and coherent than our separate cadences. In such challenging and uncertain times, when we face unprecedented threats and risks to our security and stability, we need to recall the importance of solidarity, responsibility, and, even if the word may seem outdated for some, sacrifice for the welfare and dignity of our societies. Current debates at national and European level on the future of Europe include a range of key areas and policies for member states and their citizens, such as the future of the economic and monetary union, the social dimension of the union, developments in the European migration or defense policies, or the United Kingdom retreat process. The departure of Britain, Europe's most powerful defender of the single market, may shift the EU towards a more protectionist agenda, as it has been suggested by the recent French, German, Scandinavian, or even Dutch positions. French-led movements towards a form of soft protectionism are putting the European single market at risk. The last thing we need now is for hard-won progress to be rolled back by protectionism. The ambitious policy objectives of ensuring convergence at the European Union level must be adequately supported by the Union's budget. This is why we need a balanced multi-annual financial framework for 2021-2027, which will help us achieve results in line with the expectations of our citizens and the purpose for which such a budget was established in the first place. It is important for the future Union budget to support objectives such as improving citizens' quality of life and security, increasing economic and social cohesion, promoting policies to combat poverty and social exclusion, contribute to increased employment, as well as the development of research and innovation policies. I firmly believe that the budget should be used, as it was always intended, for ensuring the structural convergence of the member states and not as a political leverage meant to discipline those governments that, for whatever reason, felt from grace with the Commission. In this context, national parliaments, as legitimate democratic forums, should play an important role in better connecting the Union to its citizens. The Romanian Senate will continue to uphold this objective by promoting debates and consultations on Europe's future-related issues. All surveys show that more than 2/3 of Romanians are positive about the future of the European Union. This figure is significantly higher than the European average. Romanians do indeed trust that the four fundamental liberties, the internal market, the cohesion policy, the common agricultural policy, and the EU enlargement are processes that transform their everyday life for the better. It is very difficult for us, Romanian members of Parliament, to explain to our constituents why they cannot yet move freely in the Schengen area, even if the Romanian government has long met all the requirements. A sense of not being recognized as full European grows steadily among Romanian citizens, and it should be noted to the credit of the Romanian society that this bitterness has not generated a populist upsurge. However, European institutions are now frequently seen as places of good politics, of good economics, but bad politics. Dear colleagues, indeed, European elites have come very close to the abatement of what we have been brought up to regard in our national settings as politics, and have replaced it with a rule of bureaucrats, bankers, and various kinds of unelected experts. So far, they have succeeded. But the elections in May will provide for the European Parliament a test of whether they can continue to do so. The European Union hopes to be untroubled by these elections, as it is expected that the functioning of the European Parliament will remain largely based on the already built compromises between the dominant political groups. It is clear that the European Union has never developed a great signpost of democracy that we all know as opposition. This is, we still lack the capacity to organize opposition within the European polity. This failure is likely to lead both to the abolition of opposition altogether and to the mobilization of a populist opposition against Europe and exterior to its institutions. The main aspect of the democratic deficit concerns the lack of representation in the European Parliament itself. European political parties as such do not compete for the votes of a European electorate based on European issues. Rather, European elections are fought by national political parties and on mainly domestic issues, with voters making their choices based on their opinion on national issues and their perception of the position of national political parties on these issues. Voters also use these elections to express a judgment on the incumbent national government. Seen in these second-order terms, European elections fail as an instrument of democracy at the European level in that they do not succeed to express the will of the European demos on European issues. Citizens acquire voice at Union level through direct representation in the European Parliament, but they are not granted any means of mandating or holding electorally accountable the key institutions of the government of the Union. The body that represents the European Parliament has no direct control over the actions of the bodies that govern the Commission in the first place. This separation between representation on the one hand and government on the other is unique and unusual. The very notion that we can have representation without an intimate connection to government, it's quite aligned to the European political tradition and to all of us as members of national parliaments. Parliaments in our common tradition represent citizens and control government. The absence of representative government at the European level is hence contributing substantially to the democratic deficit. This deficit is obvious to the citizens. It then follows that the remedy is to create in Europe a system of representative government as well as a system of representative democracy. This is, after all, how our member states function and how democracy as such is supposed to work. Distinguished colleagues, it seems to me that the topic that looms larger than any other over the future of the European Union is how to pull down the current fence between representation and government, between legislature and executive. Our task is to offer more substance to representative democracy and to bring about a coherent European demos. It is for us, members of national parliaments, to take up this endeavor. We know how to do it and why we must do it. We owe it to the people we represent. The citizens of our countries have to form a genuine European constituency able to take control of the government of the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And now, for the same reason, I invite Mr. Florin Iordache. Mr. Iordache is the Deputy Speaker of the Chamber and acting Speaker now. The Speaker is apologizing for not being with us this morning, but we hope to join us for the concert and dinner tonight. Florin Iordache has also a long experience as a Social Democrat member of the Parliament and the former Minister of Justice. Florin, please.
Bună dimineața! Mulțumesc! Good morning! Bonjour! Excelențele voastre, doamnelor și domnilor ambasadori, stimați colegi, dați-mi voie să vă urez bun venit la conferința interparlamentară dedicată viitorului Europei, eveniment organizat în marja dimensiunii parlamentare a președinției române a Consiliului Uniunii Europene. Nu poate decât să mă bucure interesul crescut al colegilor parlamentari pentru această temă și consider că momentul este ales pentru desfășurarea acestei conferințe este unul foarte potrivit. Următoarele luni vor fi marcate de evenimente importante la nivel european, începând cu summitul informal de la Sibiu, continuând cu alegerile europarlamentare și ulterior cu instalarea unei noi Comisii Europene. La sfârșitul anului se va alege un nou președinte al Consiliului European, iar agenda europeană se va adapta viziunii unei noi legislaturi. În același timp, trebuie să ne asigurăm că noua agenda europeană va oferi continuitate și perspectivă politicilor europene de succes din exercițiul anterior, precum și politica agricolă comună, cât și cea de coeziune. Politica de vecinătate a Uniunii Europene este, de asemenea, un instrument de succes prin intermediul căruia se va promova pacea, solidaritatea, încrederea și dezvoltarea economică atât între cetățenii europeni, cât și pentru cei care aspiră să acceadă în familia europeană. Stimați invitați, această reuniune este un prilej important de a oferi o contribuție valoroasă a parlamentelor naționale, cât și a Parlamentului European, pentru agenda viitoarelor reuniuni la nivel înalt, în ceea ce se va discuta viitorul Uniunii Europene. Să profităm de această ocazie pentru a oferi soluții cât mai benefice pentru cetățenii pe care îi reprezentăm, promovând declarația comună ce urmează a fi adoptată la finalul lucrărilor acestei conferințe. Declarația reliefează principii și obiective consensuale împărtășite de statele membre și legislativ european, ce merită a fi promovate în cadrul noii agende europene. Dragi colegi, pe durata celor 3 luni ale președinției române, România a contribuit la discuțiile privind dosarele legislative europene în derulare, reușind să încheie la jumătate de mandat peste 80 de dosare, cât și aproape 10 interpretări comune. Această situație, publicată recent de Consiliul Uniunii Europene, denotă implicarea și seriozitatea cu care România tratează chestiunile europene. Suntem conștienți de beneficiile aduse de apartenența la Uniunea Europeană și dorim să luăm decizii în concordanță cu interesele cetățenilor europeni. Atunci când vorbim despre interesele cetățenilor europeni, nu putem să nu ne gândim la evoluțiile din ce în ce mai îngrijorătoare privind Brexitul din această perioadă. În pofida tuturor pregătirilor recente, un eventual Brexit fără acord ar avea efecte dezastroase asupra cetățenilor și companiilor europene. Pe durata negocierilor dure din ultimele luni, Uniunea Europeană a rămas unită, pregătindu-se pentru orice scenariu posibil. La 62 de ani de la semnarea Tratatului de la Roma, piața unică este una din cele mai mari realizări ale Uniunii Europene, concepută pentru a permite libera circulație a bunurilor, serviciilor, capitalului și persoanelor. Ne dorim o bază economică solidă pentru Uniunea Europeană, de aceea trebuie să oferim o atenție deosebită amenințărilor la stabilitatea economică a Uniunii. Observăm în ultima perioadă din ce în ce mai multe previziuni privind o posibilă recesiune sau o criză financiară pe continentul european. Știm cu toții care sunt costurile materiale și sociale ale unei asemenea evoluții negative, de aceea trebuie să depunem toate eforturile posibile pentru a preîntâmpina aceste scenarii negative. Președinția României la Consiliul Uniunii Europene va continua să militeze pentru consolidarea politicilor economice de investiții, prin oferirea unui impuls care să susțină modernizarea pieței unice. Principalele arii de acțiune în acest domeniu se referă la dezvoltarea economiei colaborative, susținerea IMM-urilor, a start-up-urilor, prevenirea discriminării consumatorilor și a restricțiilor geografice, precum și modernizarea sistemului de standardizare la nivel european. Tot sub președinția română a fost votată și reforma privind drepturile de autor în sfera digitală, negocierile derulându-se pe durata a 3 ani. Astfel, creatorii de conținut vor avea dreptul de a fi remunerați corespunzător de către giganții tehnologici ce dețin platforme online. Stimularea creativității pentru cetățenii europeni are dreptul și consecința la un conținut și calitate a informațiilor cât se poate de corecte. În încheiere, aș dori să remarc pe un ton optimist că Uniunea Europeană a oferit tuturor un model de cooperare fructuoasă în beneficiul membrilor săi, spre bunăstarea și dezvoltarea valorilor fundamentale ce ne unesc și călăuzesc Uniunea Europeană. Vă propun să păstrăm referința la valorile fundamentale, să sporim creativitatea pentru a construi Europa de mâine, un spațiu mai prosper, mai sigur, flexibil și capabil să se adapteze la nevoia societății moderne actuale. Vă mulțumesc mult și mult succes la lucrările conferinței de astăzi.
Thank you very much, Florin. And now allow me to take the floor and explaining you the reasons which brought us together. This is a very important, full of responsibility period of time for all of us, for Romanians even more, being our first presidency and during such a challenging moment of European history with both high expectations and deep fears. This period represents a trial by fire for us. The government is struggling to close successfully as many as negotiations possible. The Parliament considered that it would be high time now not to close something, but instead to open reflection to the long-term future. We got an increasing awareness during this month that it has been a really audacious idea because of being so many urgent problems to be solved. Brexit, national elections, European campaign, discussing MFF, piece by piece, and not seeing that there was not a new European strategy launched before, defining at least medium-term objectives. Noticing this rush to a confused direction, we've got a strong feeling that many times we can't see the forest for the trees. European Union represents still the most peaceful, developed, and even equitable large society in the world, in spite of its increasing inequalities and tensions. For this reason, we have to find solutions how to keep the Union united now, because it has lost a part of its old charm. We cannot deny it. There are too many with opposing interests saying that the Union has already done its duty and the Union can die. This would be a shame and a danger. A shame because of forgetting how important were peace, solidarity, cooperation, for achieving the level of development Europeans enjoy today, at least a part of them. A danger because this attitude, it's undermining the possibility for a better future without putting something instead. A Europe of national member states we've had before and resulted in two bloody war every nation had to rebuild itself after. And at that moment, there were not on the arena companies having the turnover much bigger than the GDP of a big European member state. After this glorification of the unity we need, I'll be adding a conclusion. There are few concrete arguments, for instance, to speak about hope for a better future for the many, not for a few. Why, an European optimist and federalist as myself, it is so brutal? Because there is no enough political will for a significant change of what goes wrong and for preserving and expanding what it is good. If we are lucky to avoid a new financial crisis, we shall have tomorrow only a repeating present. That means the same worrying problems in mind: the citizens' discontent and social unrest, increasing inequality, lack of trust, and weak policies to solve these problems. A fragile monetary system which is endangering the entire construction, producing divergence instead of serving to fill the gap. A weaker influence than possible in shaping global order and promoting solutions built on a multilateral approach. It is our responsibility to change this situation. As parliamentarians, we are the legitimate holders of political will, if we are functional democracies and not only on paper. We put our discussions today under the sign of the fourth industrial revolution for sending a message. The future already happened yesterday. The speed of technological change gets out of our control and of our understanding many times. Technology, it is not good or bad in itself. It depends on our political choices. If we allow our society to become a high-tech feudalism, with just a few benefiting of all advantages, or we change the rules to create an inclusive and better society to live in. If we look back in the history, this management of technological change was not a big success. The first revolutions contributed massively to destroying nature in the attempt of producing more and more. The climate change, desertification, deforestation are their collateral damages endangering today's life in the earth. We don't have to repeat the errors of the past and destroying this time society and human being. We need to replace the economic approach towards everything with a new, more ethical approach when it comes about humans and their lives. For doing this, we have to start from somewhere, building bridges between us, the decision makers, to be able to speak the same language and understand the reality of the other. Always, it has been a good point to start. Thanks for having political will to come and start to build a common understanding of the future. Thank you. And now, we are kindly asked the organizer to take their seats in the meeting hall, and we invite on the stage the representatives of political parties. During this change of speakers, I will inform you about some practical issues in order to facilitate our meeting. For those using interpretation, it is provided in the following languages: Romanian, English, French, Italian, Spanish, and Turkish. If something wrong with it, please let us know immediately. The meeting is being streamed on the Parliamentary Dimension webpage. The opening has already been broadcasted live by Public National Television, our media partner. The next session will be as well live. Full meeting will be recorded for different aspects to be included in the next political programs of the public television. For requesting the floor, please use your cards on